We're rolling. Hello, everyone. It's so good to see all of you. Welcome to the CoachPreneur Project, yet another podcast. And so what's our project about? Very briefly, it's about evidence-based wellness strategies and stories powered by lifestyle change and positive psychology. And who we are, my name is Nivi Jaswal. I'm with Deborah Woods, who's my amazing partner in crime at the CoachPreneur Project. We both met at Mayo Clinic in fall of 2019, and we bring together a host of different experiences, healthcare, medical devices, food, beverage, research, education. And the one thing that's common between the two of us is passion about bringing creative and community-based projects to life, and hence the CoachPreneur Project. You'll be happy to know we're on LinkedIn. It's a brand new LinkedIn page. We're still trying to populate it with content, and you'll see some of the past podcasts on there as well. Agenda in brief, we will have Mir Garvy, our podcast expert, talk about reshaping our professional brand during and after COVID-19. And then Deborah will lead the open Q&A. So if you have questions, we encourage you to write those questions in the chat box. We'll keep an eye on them. And then we'll ask once, Mir is done with her session. And so that's what we're going to do. And for everyone's uninterrupted listening, viewing pleasure, we request that you mute yourselves, please. Right, more about Mir. Mir is a dear friend, and she is actually featuring the second time on the CoachPreneur Project. She's the founder of Job Market Solutions, and she's an expert resume writer and LinkedIn profile writer. Job Market Solutions is based in Raleigh, North Carolina, and has offices all over the US, in Seattle, Boston, Irvine, Austin, the Research Triangle Park. And after 10 years in business, Mir and her team have helped thousands of job seekers across the country prepare their job search materials. She is a certified professional resume writer, public speaker, podcast guest, of course, and Mir also offers workshops to help downsizing companies support their affected employees. And if I may add, I know Mir is a wonderful coach. Her 20-minute consultations are something to die for. So if you have a desperate question, which you think you shouldn't or don't want to ask right now, and you just want to, call in and seek Mir's wisdom, I highly recommend you do that. Okay, with that said, I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to turn to Mir. Mir, welcome. Thank you for being here for us, for the project, and for our audience. And I'm going to start with, 2020, isn't it reminiscent of what happened in 2008?
Thank you for having me back, Nivi.
Thank you. And thank you for the generosity of your time and,
Yes, absolutely.
And you mentioned that you started writing resumes back in 2008.
I have a delay.
We do. So I'm going to go slow. So you started writing resumes back in 2008.
To catch up. Okay.
And, one of the things that I want you to start with is paint a picture for us about what 2008 really felt like for you.
Yeah, it was an interesting time for sure. I had been writing web content. I'd been a freelancer for quite a while at that point, and I'd been writing web content and SEO content specifically. Helping companies rank with Google by rewriting the content on their page. So in late 2007, I had been very busy rewriting hundreds and hundreds of blog posts for Lowe's Home Improvement. All their home improvement blog posts they wanted them to be keyword optimized. And so that was a huge project I had. So that was typical of what I was doing when everything really slowed down in early 2008. My marketing pipeline or my project pipeline almost, shut down overnight. And I started thinking about what if this doesn't rebound quickly? What else do I know how to write? What services do people need that I could provide? I was really brainstorming, and people were looking for work. Unemployment was high. And I thought, well, I could write resumes. I mean, I've written resumes, I've written my own. And then of course, when you're a writer, it's like having a pickup truck and everybody asks you to help them move. If someone needs their resume updated, you're going to get asked. So I had written resumes from time to time. It certainly wasn't something that I ever thought about, marketing or charging for. But I kind of started doing it, and I think one of the things I want to talk about today as we go through this presentation is so much of what I learned as I went through the process of building my business and expanding my business. It just sort of evolved very haphazardly because I never really set out to start a resume writing business. I never thought it would be anything more than just me writing resumes. And so, I always like to say I'm flying my airplane while I'm building it. And, if I could go back and do things in a more methodical way, I would. And so that's kind of one thing I was hoping to share today. On the other hand, I came from a kind of web usability background, and one of the tenets of usability is to prototype things and see how they work. So I can't be too hard on myself, because the other side of the way that I have grown this business and grown personally has been just that. There's a new business challenge. How am I going to solve it? Let me try this. Ooh, that kind of worked. Maybe I should adjust it and do it a little differently. So, here we are. It's 2020. We're in another downturn. People have needed resumes this entire time. I've grown the business by 2000. So I started in 2008. By 2010, I had already written about 1,000 resumes. I hired Christy Strange, my assistant, and she's an amazing project manager. And she's our proofreader. She proofreads everything that goes out the door, that final set of eyes. And then 2 years ago, I added 2 writers, and so they are still with me, and they're both amazing, fantastic, Betsy and Mary. And all my team's bios are on the website. But I have to, of course, express how grateful I am to have amazing people working with me and helping provide the help that we provide this very tangible, specific tool at a time when people are struggling with feeling overwhelmed, not knowing where to start, feeling intimidated about the industry. I don't know what's an applicant tracking system. How do I get past it? What are hiring managers looking for? What should a resume look like now? Is the one I used 10 years ago, does that look dated? They just don't know these things, and it's very intimidating. So, we can come in and relieve a whole lot of that anxiety by saying, okay, listen, we do this every day. We're going to help you, and it's not going to be painful. and you're going to finish the process feeling more confident about your skills, more comfortable with the job search process, more, informed about the interview process and what you need to focus on as you're talking about the skills that you have and the value that you stand to bring. So here we are. And I think that, I want at the end of the call, I know we're going to talk about kind of the future. So I'll save my thoughts on that for then.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you so much for giving us this background. And there's some really amazing nuggets in there, even though you mentioned that, if you could turn back time, you want to go back and, do it more methodically. A lot of us, might want to do that. Hindsight is 2020. Right. But then what you also mentioned is that prototyping as you go along is really important, right? So you found yourself in a certain circumstance, and you said, well, this is what I got. This is what people need. Let's put the two together. And I'm passionate about it. Let's see how, we can make this work. And you started with just you dancing, it's all that one person who goes and just starts dancing, and then others follow. And now you Christy and you've got
That's so
Betsy and you've
funny.
got other people and you've got a whole party going, right?
Mhm.
At Job Market Solutions. And that journey, that process is really important. As important as that process is, it's also important to take the plunge, because a
Right.
lot of people, when they're caught in a certain circumstance, they're caught in a psychological dilemma of, hey, I'm doing this right now. I might not be interested in doing this anymore, but hey, how do I move? And a lot of people just shy away from taking that plunge, right? And
Yeah.
you did it. And that's important, because if you don't even take the plunge, how are you going to go ahead and do prototyping? And if you don't step into the pool, you're not ever going to learn how to swim. You swam, and here we are now. So the big thing in our past discussions that I walked away with has been, it's important to work on the business
Mhm.
versus just being in the business. And a lot of us do a great job of the latter, that, oh
Mhm.
yeah, I'm a coach, I'm in the business, I'm in the corporate world, I'm in that business. Or I'm an entrepreneur, I'm in so-and-so business, whatever business it is that you're in. But working on the business is something different, and there's a distinction. Talk to us
Right.
about that.
Well, I had a business coach when I first started writing resumes. He was a free coach provided, um, the coaching service provided through the university where I went to school. And that was something he tried to kind of drill into my head in the beginning, grow your business to that point where you're working on the business and not just in the business. And as I said, I never really thought about growing the business beyond just me in terms of team. But even as a solopreneur, we're supposed to work on the business as well. So I prepared a few slides. I want to flip over to that now if I can. And and these are just, again, my thoughts about, let's see here. I'm going to share my slide here. Where's the power? I'm sorry, hold on. There we go. Okay, so you should be seeing are you seeing the slides now, Nidhi?
Yes,
Okay,
we can see.
great. So kind of some of the things that oh my goodness. There we go. There we go. And let me move this out of the way. Okay. Technical difficulties. I had such a hard time preparing for this time because I had so much I wanted to communicate, and I wanted to be sure to share just the best advice. And again, these are hard learned lessons from my perspective. And the first thing, in reflecting back, like you said, hindsight 2020, in reflecting back, these are the things that I think are the most valuable lessons I've learned. And so I wanted to share them. The first one is assembling a team of advisors and strategic partners. So for me, this meant knowing where I lacked experience, and also kind of the tasks that I enjoyed the least, and delegating those. So like an attorney or a tax accountant or financial advisor, things that you have to be professionally qualified to do. I have slowly over time created my stable of good people that help me when I have issues like that. I would also put kind of computer repair, data loss person in there as well. And then here's where there may be people who have skills that that you don't have, or maybe you do. Like I do all my own writing and content creation, but if I weren't a good writer, I would want to find a professional to outsource. I don't do my own graphic design. I don't do my own website development. I kind of partner with someone, a third party, to do some social media strategy. She helps with the strategy and I kind of create the content. I think at some point a bookkeeper is essential. I don't have an accounting background, so I outsource that. And then I have benefited so much from having an assistant who can help me stay organized and take some of the tasks off my list. But I also think that a business mentor or coach is crucial. This is someone who can teach you things, but also hold you accountable. And then I think too, having friends who are entrepreneurs. For me, I've come to learn how much that encouragement means. And just the cross-pollination of ideas is so, so beneficial. And this kind of dovetails with the next one, finding good teachers. People who are impatient about teaching you something, they should not be in your inner circle of advisors. So like I had this computer repair person who had great reviews and he came recommended, but he was always very put out and impatient with me when I asked questions. And then I switched to a new IT person, and now I have this wonderful, warm, professional person helping me run my business from an IT perspective. And you know, he's never gonna teach me so much that I don't need him, but now I can speak intelligently with that service provider. So that's kind of what I mean about finding good teachers. And then the next one is when you do outsource bookkeeping or whatever, you've got to keep your finger on that part of the business. You know, if you lack the expertise or interest, it's really easy to delegate and trust that person, or delegate and forget about it. But you've got to know enough about those areas that you can manage that person. It's your business. You need to have checks and balances for every operation in your business. And here's the story about how I learned that lesson very painfully. I think you know a little bit about this, Nivi, but I'll share with everyone else. So about 7 years into my business, a woman that I'd hired to do bookkeeping and to cut paychecks for my company, she actually happened to be a personal friend, embezzled almost $11,000 from my business over the course of 6 months. And what I learned from the police officer who met with me to take my report when I pressed charges is that these type of people, thieves and con artists, often steal something small and then kind of wait to see if you catch it. And if you don't catch it, that's when they start really stealing in earnest. So that's exactly what happened in my case. And again, this goes back to, you know, delegating and then, you know, not checking in. But long story short, after 6 months, you know, I found the theft. I pressed charges. You know, the lesson there is that you know, it's my responsibility to know what's happening in my business, which leads me to my next piece of advice, which is have an attorney craft legal documents for your business and have every person who works for you and every client who hires you sign a contract. And I remember when years ago, I was working as a freelance writer before I was a resume writer, and a friend of mine was going to hire me to do some work for him. And he sent me over a contract. And I remember kind of thinking, well, geez, you know, we're friends, but now I get it, you know, because the person who stole from me was a friend and I did not have any kind of contract with her. The DA threw it out after 1.5 years of waiting to get on his desk. He threw it out because I didn't have any kind of written contract with the person. And without a contract, he said the case would just be hard to win. It'd be like a he said, she said situation, and he wouldn't have enough to go on to prosecute my case. So I know that most entrepreneurs, and this gets back to what you said, Nivi, about jumping in, you know, to the pool. Most entrepreneurs are hardwired optimists, right? If we weren't, why would we think that we had some novel idea or service, some, you know, we're going to change the world, I'm going to help people, I'm going to make a difference. I mean, we don't go into business because we think that our business is going to fail, right? We're sure we're going to be successful. So, I mean, we are optimistic by nature, and that's a wonderful thing, but it also does mean that sometimes you have a huge blind spot. And getting back to having a team of people to advise you, you know, we think that every employee is going to be honest, with every client's always going to be happy, every project will end well, but that's not always the case. And having written contracts protects you. So get a business attorney, get some agreements, a client agreement and an independent contractor agreement on paper, and make sure they're customized for your unique business. I actually just went and found a new attorney and had my contracts redone because of a news story I read in the paper about, I don't want to get sidetracked, but someone an inaccuracy was found on his resume. He had lied about his degrees, and he sort of passed the buck and threw his resume writing company under the bus. And I thought, am I liable for an inaccuracy in a resume? And I went back to my contract, and there was nothing in there about, we don't fact check things, right? So I had my contracts revised just to cross that T. It had never occurred to me. So I think getting an attorney maybe who already works with people in your industry might be a good idea. I finally did find a good one. And then my last tip for the business side of things is setting aside regular time to work on the business, right? Not just in the business. So 4 days a week, I work in the business. Every Friday, I work on the business. And this is just the way I structure it. But it varies week to week. It varies season to season. So like at the start of the year, I know I'm going to be doing a lot of tax work on Fridays. At other times of the year, I'll be working on other kinds of projects. And then, there are some things I do every Friday, like I transfer funds from PayPal to my bank every Friday, or I look ahead at next week's schedule every Friday. And then there are some things I do monthly on Fridays, like once a month I have to run a P&L report for my bookkeeper. Once a month I process payroll, stuff like that. But Fridays are when I would, in non-pandemic times, have lunch with someone or do a virtual call, some networking, or maybe researching, updating the website, writing an article or blog post. So I try to bucket all of those things to happen on Friday. So then I know about a fifth of my time in the business is spent working on the business.
Yeah, those are some really, really amazing things. And, to summarize, you've mentioned systems, structure, people.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of things that really stood out for me, Mir, was if you're trying to, if you're in a career transition, if you're trying to step into something new, then your existing tribe may not be the best people to source a lot of wisdom from. That if you want to be an entrepreneur, go hang out with entrepreneurs, because they're the ones who are in it at this point and are likely to be able to advise you on exactly the kind of things that you're sharing with us today.
Mm-hmm.
So seeking that tribe that you want to be a part of and going and immersing yourself with those people. The other thing is setting aside time, and it's almost like I want to be able to get on the treadmill every day, because I know that, working out is really important, but you end up not doing that unless you actually carve out that time and you set aside that time. And your Friday seems to be that I'm on the business today. This is my sacred time that has just been left aside to do the research, do the networking, talk to other people, go have lunch with, some key people, and also, be on the business versus being in the business. And the other thing you mentioned is the importance of having a coach, because you're doing all this and you're swimming, you're Phelps, and you're swimming and swimming and swimming, but Phelps needs a coach, because, beyond a point, you need someone to keep clarifying for you, someone as a sounding board, and that seems to be really important as well. And you've also mentioned about how having people around you who you hire and having legal contractual relationships with them is important. Now, all of these things are awesome, right? And people might be comfortable with, okay, I've got this checklist, systems, structure in place. I'll even go hire a coach to help me. But then sometimes people shy away from marketing. And recent client of mine, I actually heard her say, marketing myself feels like tooting my own horn. And she's an intrapreneur. She's not technically a solopreneur. What I mean by an intrapreneur is somebody who's continuing to work in a large organization, but they're tasked with this really avant-garde sort of an enterprise solution that they need to come up with, very innovative, etc. So she's an intrapreneur, and there are system structures in the company that go against that grain. So she's having to be very entrepreneurial about it. And she basically said that, and it struck me. And I was going through some research. I heavily lean on Sheryl Sandberg's research at leanin.org, and I read a research that was quoted. They did some research, and it shows that that women, as opposed to men, they tend to discount their work and their worth way more, and are less likely to proactively want to market themselves or their work. That's something very interesting. So share with us a little bit about marketing and your thoughts on that.
Yeah, happy to. It's funny, Tom Brown, who's on the call today, is my interview coach. And he told me, he was working with me last week, and he said, you need to stop using minimizing words. I'm going to tell you a little bit about such and so, or, I've started this small business, and it is a small, it's 4 people, but gosh, we're doing important work. And I'm not going to tell you a little bit. I'm going to kind of blow the doors off and share as much as I can in this hour. So, I think we all do struggle with that. And look, part of the reason people hire a professional resume writer is they don't feel comfortable tooting their own horn. I've heard that same exact expression countless times. People are very uncomfortable. So yes, what is a resume? It's a personal marketing piece. People struggle with it. So I think the fact, if that's something you struggle with, that you're not alone. It's very uncomfortable, but if you want to be successful in your business, you have to not only, market what you do, you also have to sell what you do, and which is even harder. If you're someone who struggles with marketing, then sales is going to be probably even harder. That's the third thing I want to talk about today. But let's talk about marketing first. When I wrote my first website, the content for my first website, which was back in 2008, I hadn't worked with enough job seekers yet to really understand my ideal client. I did not know who they were, and I definitely did not know what they were psychologically struggling with. As a person sitting down at a computer and typing in resume writer, Raleigh NC, go, what kind of psychology were they bringing to the interaction with my website? So the last time I redesigned my website, which was probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I made a point to include language that reflected the feelings of what it's like to be a job seeker. So my tagline, if your job search is keeping you up at night, we should talk. They're anxious, they're worried. I know, having now talked to hundreds and hundreds of job seekers, that the job transition often corresponds with other life change, other big life events, moving, divorce, a layoff, and financial pressure. So the person reading my site may be struggling with a lot of that emotion, and that's very real. And so I try to reassure them that I'm going to be able to help alleviate their problem. We've written more than 5,000 winning resumes, and we can help you too. It's very simple, straightforward language, but I'm trying to connect with that person, and again, this is not just to sell a product. I really genuinely do believe that we are helping people. So it's genuine. So I guess in asking the people who are, in on the call today and listening to the recording later, who is your ideal client? What feelings, emotions, frustrations, limiting beliefs, and practical barriers are they facing? What's the pain point that they have, that thing they want to change, and why are you in a unique position to help them? How are you going to make their life better? Once you've kind of identified who they are and how you're going to help them, you've got to market your business. So I'm going to start with just some very basic things. Some of you, depending on where you are in that kind of business timeline, may have done some of these things. But again, I I sort of stumbled into some of this stuff and did it much later than I should have. Ideally, you do this first, but before you start using your business name, you want to search the state's registry of business names. Usually it's with the Secretary of State. And also go look at the US Patent and Trademark Office. And I think we all know we need to go find a domain name that works for us. We usually start there, but you also have to check the Secretary of State and the Patent and Trademark Office. I also recommend opening a dedicated business bank account. Solopreneurs and sole proprietors are really guilty. And this is just my anecdotal evidence of having worked with lots of friends who are sole proprietors. We don't keep our finances separate, and we really, really should do that. I say start a bank account, get a dedicated business credit card, go ahead and earn points for travel miles or cash back or something like that. But all of your business expenses should be coming out of your business account or your business credit card, and just keep it very clean. It's going to save you so much time and headache at tax time. Now, the email address. You can go through your hosting company and purchase a dedicated business email address, or you can use Google G Suite for Business, which is what I'm a fan of, because G Suite is very inexpensive, $6 a month, and it comes with other business tools. But once you're a G Suite customer, and let's say you have a brand new website, you're on Google's radar, and that's going to help boost your organic search engine visibility a lot faster than it might take otherwise. The other thing that I was late in doing, but it would be a good thing to do early, is to go ahead and verify your physical location with Google. And Bing. I mean, there are others that you can request the postcard too. But, when you do a search and you see on the right-hand side of the screen, that sort of box where you see the map and you see the opening hours and you can see the reviews, you can't get that box to show up on the search results page if you haven't gone through the verification process. So request your postcard from Google. And even if you're working from home, you're not just working from home, but you have a home-based business, you don't have a physical brick and mortar location, you can still do this. You use your home address, they'll send you the postcard, you verify, and then you can go into your settings and change your address to private. And in that way, you're on Google's radar, you have a physical location, but Google's only going to show the general vicinity or city that you're in. So that's the kind of workaround if you think, oh, well, I don't want to have to put my home address out there. All right, so brand identity. Most of us aren't graphic designers. I definitely know I'm not. I've always outsourced graphic design. The logo that I still use today is something my brother designed for me 11 years ago. But I have other entrepreneurial friends who have had great success with graphic designers, like you can find on Fiverr, Fiverr.com, and Upwork.com. Those are websites you can search for creative freelancers and find someone good there. If you have some visual design skills, but or just a good eye, and you don't want to know how to use anything complex like Photoshop or whatever, Canva.com is a great resource. It's about $10 a month. It's super easy to use and has all kinds of pre-sized templates for like social media, banners, badges, posts, ads, very easy to use, and you can upload your logo and stuff like that. So whether you outsource the brand identity stuff or you try to do it yourself, you want to give some thought to your color palette, your logo, your tagline, your typefaces. You want everything to kind of look like it goes together. And then the next thing is figuring out your media mix. Traditionally this is like television, radio, billboards, direct mail, but really I think most businesses now are doing either that and digital media, but a lot of small businesses only do digital media because it is so affordable. So I only do digital media marketing for my business. So this is things like your website, social media marketing, paid and organic, email marketing, maybe a blog that you maintain, maybe a podcast that you host, or maybe you're a podcast guest. You could have a YouTube channel, and your online reviews, which you can't necessarily create, but of course you should solicit them and respond to them. Any testimonials you collect and how you decide to use those. And then if you do any paid advertising, like Google AdWords or a paid Yelp account, which is not really advertising, but I won't get into Yelp. That's one of those things. Okay. So, the topic of social media is, Nivi, you guys should try to get a true social media expert on, because that's definitely outside of my area of expertise. And you could fill a whole hour with just sort of the social media marketing component, and I would totally tune into that podcast as well. But I do, what I do know about, my preferred platform is LinkedIn. So let's look at the last thing here, which is building your website and overhauling your LinkedIn page. There are kind of DIY website builder tools out there. I have, maybe the first 2 iterations of my company website, I built myself through some sort of kind of what you see is what you get online builder. So like a GoDaddy, and I know Vistaprint, they offer kind of click and drag kind of website builders. The next step up would be something like Wix or Weebly. If you do go that route, pay the extra fee to get rid of the branded URL. So, acmecoaching.com, you have to pay to get that if you design your site with Wix or Weebly, instead of something like your username.wixsite.com/acmecoaching. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So you want like the website to look clean. My sites are designed in WordPress. I outsource the initial development. I'm savvy enough to get in and tweak the back end. But I do think that it's a good idea to have some kind of web person on retainer or available to help you with kind of routine maintenance, not just like updates, but are your plugins still working? What about security? If you're collecting confidential information or if you're accepting payments, you need to make sure that your website has those security features. So that's out above the head of probably most of us, but you want to have that good web expert in your stable. And then, once your website's done, updating LinkedIn as well. And of course, we spent the whole last CoachPreneur project just talking about how to use LinkedIn to promote your business. So real quickly, the 5 things your website must do is have great content. If you write it yourself, great. If you want to outsource it, that's fine. But the messaging on your website has got to connect with your potential customers. It's the first impression. It's your best chance to pre-sell. That way, when they call you, it's not a cold call. I mean, I get calls from clients who say things like, oh, I saw on your website that you offer a professional package and it comes with a resume and a LinkedIn makeover and a cover letter. Can you tell me more about that? So they're pre-educated. They're even pre-sold, right? So that's the first thing. And then SEO, I told you I came from an SEO background. So the domain name should be keyword rich. The content should be keyword rich. There are places to be sure to include keyword rich content, the title tags, the first and second level headings, the first paragraph of the page. And then of course there's metadata, which is content that we can't see, but that should also be keyword optimized. So your web team should help with that. And then mobile friendly. A couple years ago, Google and other search engines started penalizing sites for, if they weren't designed to display, it's called responsive design. If it's not displaying well on other kinds of devices, then Google started kind of penalizing you by not, by pushing your search results down further in the search results pages. So your site has to be mobile friendly. I wanted to talk about what calls to action are and why they're so important. And I don't know if I think so, we're so used to now seeing sites that do this, but it's worth talking about just for a minute here, because if you're intentional about including calls to action or CTAs throughout your site, it will make a difference. So Each page of your site should have at least one call to action. This is an opportunity for people to engage with you or take a next step. So they're going to vary based on kind of what you're offering, what you want them to do. But, depending on your audience, if your audience is over 40, they might be more likely to want to talk with you by phone. If your audience is under 30, they might prefer a chat bot where they can just kind of get their questions answered right then, through some sort of AI chat bot. So think about your audience and what calls to action might be good. But, let's see, some of the things that might be good would be like downloading a PDF report or a free report of some kind, filling out a form, kind of giving you some of their preliminary information. They can email you, obviously, they can call you. I mentioned the chat bot. The thing that has been a real business changer for me was a great little tool called, it's a online book a call feature, and it's actually acuity.com. It's $10 a month. That one thing, I can't even tell you how it's paid for itself over and over and over again. It's unbelievable how much time we spent back and forth with Christy saying, when would be a good time? Oh, Mir's not available then. How about Tuesday? Oh, no, she can't talk at 3:30. Oh my goodness. Now people go to the website, they pick a day, they pick a time, they book a call, and I call them. It is just beautiful. And it's so inexpensive at $10 a month. And then the last thing is analytics. So yeah, if you're not a web developer and the idea of tracking your Google Analytics gives you hives, then this is something to think about outsourcing for sure. But you get so much good business intel from your analytics, where your leads are coming from, what they were looking at, what page they were looking at when they decided, like for instance, when someone books a call, if I look at my analytics, I can see what page they were on. So I can kind of figure out, oh, well, they were looking at the student resumes page, or they were looking at the executive resumes page. I can sort of prepare myself for the call based on what products they might be interested in. But there's so much in the analytics to inform the business and help you, sell more effectively, which is the next thing we're going to talk about, selling.
Right. This is a lot of amazing, amazing information. Few things that stood out for me. Stop minimizing yourself. Start maximizing yourself. That is important. If you ever chide yourself, then that's the energy that's going to transfer into the business that you're seeking to build. Hashtag your content, so whatever it is that you're writing, hashtag it, have rich keywords, so that you're bubbling right on top of that Google search engine optimization algorithm. Match the energy of who you're seeking, because as they say, who you're seeking is seeking you. So if the website that you put out is well thought out, and it, even if you're working internally in an organization, or you're trying to internally sell a program, market a program, think about who those specific audiences are. And for the coaches who logged in today, who are your coaching audiences? When you start out with your work, a lot of times, you just take on whoever, wants to come in, and you end up with a very diverse set of clients. You may have some seniors, you may have some people who want weight management advice, you may have some other people, maybe people from the corporate world, they're burning themselves out and they need help with time management, so on. It pays to look at your specific audiences a little bit more professionally and start creating that definitive signature for your business. Because if you're about everyone, then you're eventually not going to attract any specific person, right? And then you're just waiting around. So you also mentioned about verified location, look into trademarks, very important, especially as you start to scale up your business, or in COVID-19 and beyond times when things are more likely to be digital, than ever before. You don't really care where your clients come from. Honestly, a lot of my clients come from overseas. And if I have a website or a calling card that doesn't work in some of the places, and by calling card I mean the website, the content of it, and name, and so on, then I might be losing out on business. Great. And the last thing that spent a whole deal sharing with us about is the need for professionalizing marketing. A lot of us think, oh, Wix, I can do it myself. Yes, you might be able to do it yourself. However, as you start to get a little bit more serious about your business, if you want your business to be taken seriously, if you want your program that you're about to launch within your organization to be taken seriously, invest in professionalizing it a little bit, because somebody who's done it professionally is trained to do it. They'll spend less time, creating a beautiful product for you than you would trying to do something you're not necessarily trained in. Marketing is awesome, but utterly useless if you're not able to pitch and sell. And so talk to us about selling.
Okay. This is, ripped from the recent learning curve of my life. I want to encourage everyone to become a practiced, keyword, salesperson who can sell with confidence and professionalism. I threw in professionalism there because I think it is the epitome of professional to be having a terrible day and get on a sales call and pull it together and do what you do, no matter whether whether you're feeling it or not, right? So being confident and being able to bring the energy when you need to. And I think those are some of the things why I kind of chose to write this the way I did. A practiced salesperson who can sell with confidence and professionalism. Something I'm still working on. So I think that sales is like any muscle. It's uncomfortable at first, and it's something that a lot of us feel very squeamish about. I know I did. The more you do it, the easier it is, the more natural it is. As I thought about everything I wanted to share, I think one of the main things I hope you hear me saying is that I want you to keep pushing yourself to grow both personally and professionally. For me, my own limiting beliefs of what I was quote unquote good at and what I wasn't kept me from even trying something like selling. It was actually my sister, my older sister, of course, who has spent her whole career in sales, who challenged me to think differently about sales. So, getting straight on what sales is and what it's not. One of my hangups about selling, and probably some of you can relate to this, I thought sales had to be pushy. Just like we think marketing is about tooting your own horn, we think sales is about being pushy. I personally, in my own life, really respect people's beliefs, and I respect their right to them. And so for me, I felt like selling them was somehow not respecting their right to not hire me, right? If someone wants to hire me, they will. I don't want to have to talk them into it. And in my personal life, I respect people's privacy, and I did not want to ask probing questions. It did not sort of gel well with the way I, respect people's privacy. So I realized, though, I had to flip this on its head, because job seekers can't get over the hump of writing their own resume for whatever reason. And I know that I can help them. So me explaining that to them it's not talking them into anything. It's not prying into their personal lives. I'm helping them. And in order to help them, I have to both find out what they are struggling with, probing questions, and tell them about how I can help them, explaining what I do. So, if you're a wellness coach and you hear the pain and frustration in a potential client's voice, and you know that you can help them, your explanation of the approach that you're going to take, that's a wonderful thing. And that's sales. So my sales style is the farthest thing from pushy. I do way more listening than talking. But when it is my turn to talk, I take the time to reflect back exactly what I heard from that client. I customize my explanation of what I do to address their unique situation. And then I leave it up to them to decide whether or not they're going to hire me. But, in developing the sales pitch, we have to find what works and keep tweaking. I mean, you get this script, you commit it to memory, and you have to say it over and over and over again. It's your story, and you're saying it over and over again. That's where the professionalism comes in. I think sales is incredibly redundant, but things work for a reason. And once you find what works, you just sort of keep doing it. I had my sister sit in on some of my calls, and she made suggestions to help me improve. That was really very, very helpful. Maybe there's someone in your life who can help you, someone that you know who is a salesperson who's received some formal sales training that can help you. I know there are also sales consultants. I've never worked with a sales coach other than kind of informally with my sister, but that's something to think about, because it is about practice. I don't need a cheat sheet anymore, but I, in the beginning, had cheat sheets all taped all over my desk, just to, more than anything, calm my nerves. But, kind of those if-then hesitancies. If a client, if they say this, here's what you're going to come back with. If they say that, this is how you can speak to it. And then I still use a cheat sheet for like my price points. Once someone is ready to, oh, well, what's the next step? How can we get started? I need to be able to seamlessly quote them for the exact price of what they're looking for. And so I do still use a pricing cheat sheet. And then I kind of mentioned this earlier, the energy level that you bring to every call is so crucial. If you're doing the calls by phone, they're not seeing your face or anything. They're only hearing your voice, and you've got to get that across. Like I said, bringing your A game, even on the days where you're not feeling it. If you're going to, my sales calls are 20 minutes. I have 20 minutes set aside. Sometimes they're shorter, but if I'm going to give someone 20 minutes of my time, I really want them to hire me. I don't just throw my time away, so if I don't get to the end of that 20-minute time frame and prompt them to, make a decision, then I'm not valuing my own time. Okay, the next thing is creating a pipeline and following up and tracking the numbers. These are all things my sister taught me. That's what I should call my book. Things my sister taught me when I write it.
Excellent idea.
I'm not pushy, but that doesn't mean that I take no for an answer. Okay. So sometimes a client wants to hire me, but it's just not the right time. And sometimes it's a matter of decision making. They need to talk with their significant other, and then they'll get back to me. Sometimes they have every intention of getting back to me, and they, got busy or forgot or lost my contact information. So I had to kind of tell myself, hey, you're doing these people a favor by following back up with them. You're not pestering them. You're doing them a favor, right? I have actually had people thank me for following up. They write back, oh, thank you for emailing me again. I talked to 4 different companies and I couldn't remember which one you were with. And I'm so glad that, you reached back out. The other thing here is this systematic way, getting back to what you said about, systems, so important. Even if you're a company of one person, having systems. Sales, you have to have a good system for tracking your leads, following up with people, recording your conversations and emails, not actually recording your conversations, taking notes about your conversations, and your close rate. I use a CRM. It's actually a plugin for Gmail. It's a Google product. It's called Streak. I am not being paid to promote their service. I absolutely love this program. I will say their reporting feature is not great, but the pipeline, the CRM piece of what they do is fantastic. It integrates with your email inbox, and after you get used to using it, it's very easy. You can track every lead. You can record your call log notes. You can set alerts to remind you to follow up with people. So if I have a call with someone and they go, yeah, I do want to move forward, but I need to get through my daughter's wedding. Can we talk again in a month? I can go ahead and set an alert that'll pop up in a month to contact that person. And you can create this timeline or this pipeline of steps in your sales process and move them along through that sales process. So, first they're in the lead category, then first follow-up, then second follow-up, third follow-up. Ultimately, they're closed, either closed won, hopefully, or closed lost. So the sales cycle ends when someone either decides to hire you or they say they're not interested, or another version of that, they just go dark. And then finally, I just move them into closed lost. But everybody works their way through that process. So I also want to talk about conversion rate. This is such an important part of your business, and it's a way to track your sales effectiveness. And as you get more practiced and more confident, you're going to see this number go up because you are getting better, more skillful, and more comfortable doing this thing called sales. The conversion rate is the total number of conversions divided by the total number of leads. So for instance, in a given month, let's say you had 20 leads and 3 people decided to hire you, your conversion rate is 15%. And it doesn't even matter. You can go online and Google what's a good conversion rate. It doesn't matter. It just means that your conversion rate, if you're always getting better, then that's your goal. So tracking your leads and your conversions every month, calculating your conversion rate, and just keep working to improve your rate. Again, your time is valuable. Why would you be doing these calls if you're not going to, and just like, I think with coaching, what's the first thing we ask like a nutrition or weight loss client to do? Oh, have a food diary, write down what you're eating for a week and then let me look at it. Well, this is your food diary, right? We want to see what you're doing, how many calls you're making, how many emails you're responding to. Once you have that documentation, you know how many leads you have every month and how many sales you close a month. The beauty of that is that, like, now when you say run a promotion or do some sort of email marketing campaign or something like that, you actually know if it's working. If you try some new sales approach, or if you decide to give people more flexible payment options, what happened to sales? Did they go up? So it gives you information on what's working and what's not. So referrals, repeat customers, and reviews. I just want to talk about these very briefly. There are a lot of businesses that sell products or services that people need on a recurring basis. In resume writing, it could be years before a person called me back, but I do get repeat customers, especially now, 11 years in business. People come back 4 years later, 5 years later. Whatever your business model looks like, ask yourself, how can I continue to be of value to my former customers even after the initial engagement is over? So I don't know, in coaching, Nivi, what's your sense of that? Is that kind of one and done, or are there ways that you can encourage repeat business in coaching?
Oh, I think that it's one of those businesses, if I'm, I want to call it a business, of course, that you get repeat business all the time. At least this has been my experience, where somebody wanted to work on a goal and they succeeded, and they have another goal and they realize that if they're shadowed by an expert who's going to affirm them, who's going to ask them some questions, open-ended questions, keep them thinking about it positively, help them in, positive reinforcement, all of those things, then they're going to want to they're going to want to work with you again when they have another goal, right? And some people have weight management goals that they, are able to meet, and they're over the moon, and they want to refer you to another person, and so on. Some people have chronic illness and they have success in dealing with it. They want to, talk about you to others. A lot of times, because things get very personal in the coaching business, people might shy from writing very personal reviews. But I guess that's something that happens in a lot of businesses. They don't want to get too personal about their own situation. But there are ways around that. And I've had success with referrals that have been over the email or over WhatsApp Messenger, or just, texting, something that keeps it private. At the same time, it's one-on-one, and then the person will bow out and say, okay, now I'm going to leave the two of you to talk. And repeat customers, the same people wanting to come back if they're dealing with something new. If they're planning to run a marathon, for instance, they want to come back and they want to talk about it. So Mir, I hate to interrupt you at this point. However, we're at the point when we have, it's 2 p.m. And I know I wanted to very quickly ask you one last question, and then we sort of go ahead, ask, our guests if they have some questions for you as well. So my last question is, in COVID-19 and the coronavirus pandemic time, right? What is your big advice to small business owners, to solopreneurs about the way in which their business, their professional brand, their business strategy is going to have to change?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball. That's the first thing. But I do think that some of what we've talked about today still applies. And that is always evolving your business, always looking for new opportunities. There are businesses right now that are doing better than ever. And who could have seen that coming? I think, just reflecting personally, even on this platform, doing a video webinar, even though I did public speaking in front of a room of real people for years, doing this is new for me. I'm outside of my comfort zone right now, speaking to a green dot on my laptop to people all over the country. And there's, an art to it, and I'm kind of fumbling through and doing my best. But one of my favorite, I just listened to a podcast very recently by Brene Brown, and she talked about the FFTs, the effing first times, and how awful it is to try new things. And yet, when we look at how children learn, they just try things and they fail and they get up and they try it again. And as we get older, we just, we have these limiting beliefs. I'm good at this. I'm not good at that. I'm, whatever it is, but, or we just get comfortable. And I think to keep growing yourself and your business, you have to be willing to get uncomfortable and try new things. And if they could have gone better, how could they have gone better? What could you have done differently? And you just keep course correcting and moving forward.
Thank you so much, Mir. Deborah.
Yes. Mir, thank you so much for your time. This was a power-packed hour. I was just wildly scribbling notes to keep and use. And you mentioned writing a book. I hope you are. If you are, I'll be one of the first to purchase it and spread the word. Such a valuable experience you've shared with us on so many levels. So thank you. For any of our guests, if you have questions, maybe the best thing to do would be to get in touch directly with Mir. So with that said, Mir, if people want to get in touch with you to ask questions, to have a conversation, or to potentially work with you, what is the best way for them to get in touch?
Well, my website's packed with calls to action. So if they go to jobmarketsolutions.com, they can book a call, they can send me an email, they can just call the phone number. There are plenty of ways to get in touch. I'd be happy to engage with anyone. I know we were supposed to have some time for Q&A, and we didn't get to that, but I will be happy to have a 20-minute phone call with anyone who wants to book a call, ask questions, talk through, anything that, impressions that they had after this, after having listened to this. I'm glad to do a phone call and have a private Q&A.
Well, thank you. I know some will be in touch, and I'm very serious about the book. Any thoughts on when it might come out?
Oh my gosh, you're making me blush. No, Kate, stop it. How much did my sister pay you?
Well, some valuable information, and we will all be taking it with us, and some good strategies and skills, and helping to focus us for really uncertain times, and to navigate forward, prototyping, finding our way, taking the plunge, and then tweaking as needed to be successful in our individual careers. So thank you for the gifts that you've given us and sharing what you've shared today.
Oh, thank you both. I really appreciate being back.